So last time I was sat here was actually in New York and did a similar thing with someone else. And James just said to me that, he said, don't expect any noise from the audience. And I said, well, I'm from London and I don't want to be shown up by Americans. So is everyone having a good time? That was absolutely pathetic. Is everyone having a good time?
Yeah.
That was great, I'll take that. Okay, my name's James. As James just said, I'm the CEO and co-founder of the ASO Co. The business pretty much does what it says on the tin. We've been going for about a year and a half and are very fortunate to have worked with and are still working with some amazing brands. And I think that we are definitely pushing the boundaries of what is possible within ASO, and that's why I'm always really excited to come here, and I'm particularly excited to talk about Sam, who I know has also been doing ASO for a long time. So, first and foremost, who are you?
Hi, I'm Sam. I work for what you call Rational Group, is now Stars Group, which is the owner of PokerStars, BetStars, and PokerStars Casino, so online gaming basically, or online gambling also called. And my background's in SEO, which I've been doing for around 6-7 years, originally in content marketing and so on. And around 2013, we started looking into ASO because we obviously saw an opportunity. We launched our app around 2012 and started looking into it. And more we've been working on that and seeing where it takes us, basically.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that quite a bit. There's been quite a natural progression, I think, from SEO and content into ASO, which I think makes a lot of sense. I think those two areas are definitely blurring somewhat, even more so now. So obviously you're in a good position to start looking at ASO. In fact, I remember when I first spoke to you, and we sat down. Usually when we sit down with people, we say, how much you know about ASO, and you're like, well, I've been doing it for about 5 years. I was like, what? Which was always a bit of a surprise. So in terms of PokerStars and the group, so tell us just so I'm assuming that everyone's actually heard of PokerStars, but will you just tell us a little bit about the group, and also I think in particular kind of where the mobile journey started and kind of where you're at?
Okay, so PokerStars obviously is a poker company and the biggest poker brand that's been around for the last 10 years, and is now moved into sports betting and even social gaming and so on. But poker remains the main product we have. We launched our first app in 2012, which was actually maybe slightly late on some competitors, or at least compared to these social gaming apps like Zyngas and WSOPs that launched quite early. And so we thought we were maybe a little bit behind, and we saw between 2012 and early 2014, mobile was already, or our app was already driving 25% of acquisition, and now by 2016 it's about half. So it's been obviously growing massively, and there's on poker you've still got a big base on desktop, because the big players will always want to play on desktop because you get 2 screens and so on, and it's better. But mobile for the more casual player has clearly become the main platform.
So how many markets are you available in?
Around the world, we're available in most markets, really. There's obviously some from which we're blocked. The US is the big one that we're not in at the moment, except for New Jersey, where we have a license. So we're slowly creating licenses in different areas, and then we've got a main Isle of Man license that basically caters for countries that don't have that don't offer a license.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. Okay. So you've been in ASO for a long time. So I think what would be really interesting is to learn how it's changed over the years, and also, how different it is, and also outside of, what we would call kind of basic ASO. What else are you doing?
So I guess when I started doing it, it was very much kind of, we came to this conference in Berlin in 2013, and there was one guy talking about ASO, and he, gave us the initial tips. It's like, actually, you can put as many keywords as you want in your app name, and you'll start ranking for those massively. So, we were probably among the first in
the good old days.
Yeah, exactly, in our industry to actually, okay, we get a lot of downloads, we've got a good download rate, we can rank for every single one of our target keywords by putting them into the app name. Mm-hmm. So, those kinds of things. Then really keyword research, we did a lot of that. There wasn't much available, so we were using kind of, Google search data, and then as well like Google's ads data and anything we can get our hands on really, and then trying to figure out what works and switching things around. Mm-hmm. And I think at the end of the day we got pretty close to what we have now anyway, that it's just reaffirming, the new data we have is reaffirming what the research we'd done, right? And then I guess it moved on slowly into, at the time you didn't have analytics data, Apple wasn't providing anything, so on. So as all that came through, then you started having A/B testing tools that you could do. So then really conversion became the big thing. So we focused a lot on conversion, on recreating the creatives completely, on doing several tests a year to constantly try to make it that little bit better. And as time's gone on, then that's been done. You sort of, although we change our screenshots probably once a year, we don't really test them that often, or maybe every 6 months, but we're quite confident with what we have. And similarly with the keywords, so now it's about really driving visibility and driving rankings basically, and moving on from just looking at rankings for our top keywords to finding the ones that perform the best in terms of conversion, and really pushing those to the top, top position, top 2 positions, and really looking at organic acquisition, like basically driving the rankings more than anything now. Okay.
And what would you say are the biggest barriers at the moment in terms of making your job easier?
Well, I guess, to some extent it's, Apple will make changes almost every year now. iOS 11 coming out, there's going to be a lot of changes, and iOS 10 there are changes, and so on. So you're constantly, you get to a certain level, and then there's a change, and you have to basically adapt everything again and start almost from scratch. Mm-hmm. And similarly, obviously, they might change their algorithm, which then impacts what you're doing, and you're constantly sort of having to adapt to the environment. I think that's one of the difficulties. And then now you've got search ads as well, which we don't know how that impacts organic. So is that going to have an impact really? At the moment, I haven't really seen anything significant, but or are they going to add another ad, or we don't know what's going to happen really.
Okay, cool. So going sort of back to basics, I think a lot of people in the room, I'm sure there's people that are quite advanced, but I imagine there's some people that are still kind of in the early stages of kind of ASO. So can you give us some examples from a metadata perspective and also from a creative perspective of where you've actually seen really just quick wins?
Well, metadata, as I said, at the time, the app name and playing around with that, that we made huge gains. As well, I guess in creatives, it's, you sometimes make a change. We had like 2 screens on each image. We removed and had just 1 screen that showed some of the gain. That helped. We removed the video because we weren't getting as much real estate in the search results. That really, you could see a real impact. And then, at the same time, sometimes you make a change that you think, okay, this just makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. That it's because you have so much noise going around in the kind of in the analytics. Because I can try to look at views and then and from there to downloads, but our display team is driving, tens and tens of thousands of views. So it makes the metrics difficult to understand.
Yeah.
So then sometimes you get the feeling that, okay, we're performing better. Maybe it is the full new set of screenshots we did, basically.
Yeah, I think the removing the video is an interesting one, because we see a lot of people who have videos, particularly in iOS, when that real estate, the two screenshots on the search are so important, and having a screen there with a triangle in the middle. We see obviously is a bit of a waste of space. So that's a really good example. Actually, I think looking at the creative assets for both, so in fact we were talking about this earlier, saying that obviously in Google Play you don't really see the screenshot, so actually focusing on the feature graphic or the icon actually, which comes up in the search, is important, whereas of course in iOS it's just the 2 screenshots. So on the kind of creative assets, given that you do have so many markets that you work in, so I mean, how much do you change the creative? So in terms of localization, do you change them a lot? Do you not change them? Do you look at?
I mean, we localize for all markets for sure, but in terms of we're not going to have, and we have different, we'll have some different games or promotions in France compared to UK, and our promotions in those screenshots will be different, or are this kind of things, or some of the games aren't available in certain areas. So we'll make those changes because we have to make them, right? But generally the design across Europe will be the same. We A/B test in one language, and then we apply that. The big change then is Asia, basically, where we've really started to look at, we changed our screenshots in China to try to, we sort of realized that our screenshots were in white, and white is the color of death or something like this. So you sort of think, okay, move away from that. So we went for something more like black red, which is a brand color, but still works, right?
Yeah.
So this kind of thing is what we're trying now in Asia. Similarly in Japan, we're now looking to. It's a difficult balancing act because our brand designs don't necessarily align at all with what they'd expect to see in their stores. Yeah. So we're trying to balance between what's going to convert and what we can actually show, basically, from our brand side.
Right, brilliant. Okay. I think another area that is particularly interesting, and that's why I was keen to get you up here, is paid is becoming a lot more important within organics and in ASO, and I know you guys do quite a lot of paid. So, how does that look at the moment, and how are you using paid or using organics, or how are you looking at them together to get better performance?
So, we realized we did a lot of testing on this, and we realized that, if we drive a lot of downloads, a lot of volume for a long period of time, then we increase rankings. And so we did calculations with our BI team looking at, let's take a baseline, let's take what the uplift is when we make those ranking gains for the core keyword, what is, for us is poker, basically. Poker is what drives most of the traffic and most of the conversion. So, going from 5th to 3rd, it makes a difference, right? And so essentially we've started, as we saw this is working, and we look at it very simply, right? We got our baseline, that's our uplift. How much did it cost for us to get those extra players? What's the ROI? Is it worth doing? and if it is, then we do. And at the moment, it's working for us, right?
Yeah.
So we're considering ASO pretty much as a separate channel with a separate budget, with different campaigns to drive the rankings, and then we analyze. And if you look at something like Incent and stuff, by optimizing our Incent campaigns really well, we can actually get results from direct response that basically mean we break even, and then the extra downloads mean that we're making more organics, so actually the value's there basically.
Cool, nice. I think we've only got, we've got 26 seconds, so you're going to have to answer this relatively quickly. What's the future of ASO?
Yeah, let's say it's a tough one. I guess, my guess would be that Apple and Google will both at some point work on their algorithm a bit more and make it more difficult to game. But in the meantime, I think, more and more companies will look at this as, will start to compete basically. The top 3 positions are what, where you're going to make your money. And I'm talking purely search here, not categories, because the categories don't really drive for us anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see there be a lot more competition for those, and people actually putting more money into it.
Yeah, I think money. I think you mentioned it earlier. I think this year particularly, we've seen businesses having a separate budget for ASO, which I think is interesting. SEO the people don't even question it. And I think the more and more education and the more we can, as a group of people, look at measurement and attribution and performance, then the more people will put into it.
The difficult one is it's difficult to track, right? So essentially you have to get people to trust you, and when you say it's working, they actually believe you, and work closely with your BI team to actually prove it.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I think we're out of time, but have we got? Are we in extra time? We've got extra questions. Okay. Has anyone got any questions?
So questions? Anyone? Any thoughts?
Not one question. Come on. There we go. Oh, Mick. Go on, Mick. Oh, let that go.
Hi, I'm David from Shipstead Group. So my question is, how do you actually go about driving downloads? Because previously I've worked with gaming clients who required side loading of the app. So do you push a lot of your downloads through the official app store, or do you side load them? You side load them, so you have to disable, so you can uninstall a third-party package.
Yeah, so you're talking Android. So actually,
Yes.
I've mainly been focused on iOS purely because the real money apps are now available in the Google Play Store. So you would have to, in order to download our Android app, you would have to side download it. So which means that for us, Android is very difficult because the conversion is really bad.
Oh, at the back.
Hello, guys. Mick from Yodel Mobile. I believe iOS 11's going live in September, and with that, there's going to be a complete redesign of the Apple App Store, not just from the way that the apps are delivered or shown within the App Store, but also other key things like the inclusion of 3 videos within your app listing. Are you guys doing anything to look forward to that, and what are you actually going to be implementing?
So I guess, we're treating it pretty much in the same way as we've treated other changes to the App Store, is we'll prepare for, we're not going to create the videos right away, and we'll prepare our assets and our content for the new store. And then based on what we see once everything goes live and so on, we'll start optimizing. And I think this change is probably bigger than the ones that have happened previous. But I don't see it as being massive. Will 3 videos or the autoplay make a huge difference. How do they, how do they fit the 3 videos? Do people want to see 3 videos? At the moment, they don't. It doesn't seem like they are that bothered about seeing one video, right? A lot of our downloads happen straight from the search results, where they'll just see an image and just download instantly as well. So, I suppose it depends very much on the user and which kind of user, and we'll try to optimize towards what we think the majority of users want to do.
Just to add to that, I think one of the great parts of being in an agency is that you actually, we're doing, to put things into perspective, we're doing about 200 optimizations a month at the moment. And actually, one nugget, which you may or may have tested this, but the news subtitle area, the metadata area within iOS, 100% has a huge impact on rankings. So we did an isolated test recently where we put it in one and not in another, and literally the keyword dropped off, as in you look at it, it dropped off, then we put it back in a week later and it shot up back to number 2. So I actually think there's quite a few considerations for iOS 11 that you really need to be looking at. Actually, on the 3 video thing, it's an interesting one because you're right, it's going to look really small, but then we were talking to someone that we're working with, a well-known delivery app, doing a story of pressing the app. The guy gets on his scooter and then it gets delivered at the door. So little things like that, I think, if you can work it in your favor, I think there might be some interesting things that you can do. It'll just be really small because if anyone's actually tested it, if you can actually download it now, it's quite small in the search results. But I'm excited. Cool. Thank you very much.